The new Sky Striker archetype is a long-awaited one that drops in the TCG this week. It's going to be very popular, so in this video I'm going to give you guys 10 things to know about the deck for beginners, whether you're building it or facing it. Let's hop in. Number 1. Despite seemingly being based around the monster Sky Striker Ace Ray, this deck can actually function without her. Thanks to Sky Striker Hornet drones, the deck can actually make a token that allows them to make the Link monsters without even having a copy of her in their main deck at all. This means the deck can function as both a pure variety or be mixed in as an engine for another deck. Second thing to know, this deck doesn't actually want to have monsters in its main monster zones because the spell cards require that you don't. So the few monsters that you'll be running are ones that can easily get rid of themselves when they're in the main monster zone. A prime example is Darkest Diablos that can just easily tribute itself, take a card out of the opponent's hand, and now it's off your field. It even has a little bit of extra synergy because when Sky Striker Ray uses her effect to tribute herself and summon one of your Sky Strikers from your extra deck, it can actually summon itself from the grave. Very handy. Each of the Sky Striker spell cards has a normal effect, but it also gets an additional effect if you have 3 spells in your grave when they're activated. This means that the deck will want to use a lot of different spell cards to fill their grave up quickly, and they'll oftentimes use cards like Upstart Goblin or Toon Table of Contents as kind of redundant draw and search cards to just quickly pile the graveyard up. That leads us into our next thing to know about this deck. It likes its spell cards. This means though that it can be very prone to cards like Imperial Order and Anti-Spell Fragrance, in addition to more specific strategies like Eradicator Epidemic Virus or Naturia Beast. And of course, Draw and Lockbird because it likes to do a lot of drawing and searching. Another important thing to know is that Sky Striker's Afterburner and Jamming Wave, the 2 maneuver spells, actually are very unique. So when they're activated, they just target a spell or trap or a monster in the field and destroy it. But then their second effects where, if you have 3 spells in your grave or more, lets them destroy a monster in the field or a spell and trap, but do not target. This can be a really great way for the deck to deal with untargetable monsters, and it's something to keep in mind that makes some of your existing monsters not so safe. Next thing, unlike a lot of archetype support cards, the Sky Striker Ace cards don't actually have hard once per turns on them, which means that you can actually activate all of these spells multiple times in a turn. And oftentimes the strategy will be trying to do that. But just because you can doesn't even necessarily mean that you should. Sometimes saving them for a future turn can make for a more explosive play in the middle of the game. A small but important thing to know about this deck is that both of its Link monsters, Kagari and Shizuki, actually grant the opponent an extra monster zone because they point to the opponent's field. So if you're facing this deck, you'll want to capitalize because this could mean the extra opportunity to summon from the extra deck that you didn't have before. And of course, if you're the Sky Striker player, you'll have to keep that in mind too. Some of the popular spell engines to use in this deck are the Toon Table engine, which involves running 3 copies of Toon Table of Contents because it can search itself out over and over and quickly fill your grave. And you can even use, say, Toon Cyber Dragon, which is easy to summon and can get rid of opponents' extra monster zones if those happen to not be open and are preventing you from making your Link monsters. There's also the Spellbook engine, which is just a lot of free drawing and searching. And then there's the Foolish Burial Goods engine, which involves running it and Metal Foes Fusion. You can use it to send Metal Foes Fusion to the graveyard and then shuffle Metal Foes Fusion back into your deck to get a free draw. All these work really well, they all have their ups and downs. Which you run is entirely up to you. Kaijus can be a bit of a thorn in the side of this deck. Because this deck mostly revolves around 1 Link monster in the extra monster zone at any given time, and it can't use its spells if there's anything in the main monster zone, using a Kaiju can be really troublesome, because not only will you get rid of their Link monster, you'll put a Kaiju in their field in the main monster zones, immediately preventing them from using most of their cards. And this is a great way to face the deck, and of course, if you're using the deck, you'll want to have some type of main decked way of dealing with these situations. The field spell can be one of them, but maybe you could have some others too. And last but not least, this deck functions like a tower defense strategy. You'll only have 1 monster on the field at a given time, and you'll want to basically be protecting it with a lot of very disruptive quick play spell cards, and then just beat your opponent out in sheer advantage. This deck though can have a bit of a problem when it has to face disruption. It's important to save your hand traps if you're facing the deck, and similarly if you're playing the deck, you'll want to bait out hand traps like Ash Blossom. If you don't, it'll be a tough time, and if you're facing the deck and you stop it at the right time, it can be very easy to actually face. So, those are 10 things to know about the Sky Striker archetype if you're just getting into it, whether you want to play it or whether you are facing it. If you like these 10 things to know videos, give me a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. I've got other ones that you can check out. I'll also link in the description some other useful videos explaining this deck in more detail, like rulings from MST TV's channel, for example. That's gonna be it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.